All right, we're live. I think this is working, hopefully. Looks like there's a lag. Let's see. Let's see. Cool. Hey guys. Hey Jim. Thanks for letting me know. We've been having software problems and it's been a pain. All right. So today we're going to talk about the election. It has been really crazy for those of you guys following the play-by-play. There's been a lot, and there's a lot to talk about. The first thing I think that we should talk about is that it has been just as chaotic as everybody expected it to be. We all said that there was going to be some sort of contested election, and lo and behold, here it is. Man, guys, I wasn't expecting it to be the way that it is now, though. It has not been like widespread riots in the streets like we were expecting, and it hasn't been, um, scaling fences at the White House. Instead, what we're seeing is very much a legal battle in the streets. Unfortunately, that's almost worse, in my opinion, because it's not as obvious what's going on. Instead, we're seeing like a chess game happening in the streets. The first thing that I really want to talk about is Detroit. If you guys saw what happened in Detroit today, it is kind of shocking. Steven Crowder had a video up on his live stream today, and it was a guy basically in an unmarked vehicle wearing just plain clothes. He was pulling a box out of the van that he was in and placing it into a red kids wagon. This is like a radio flyer wagon or a red wagon. And he then just wheels this wagon with the box in it into the voting facility. That's kind of weird in my opinion because there was no security to stop him. There was no security to check what was in the box, and nobody checked his ID when he entered the facility. And I think that we are seeing similar situations kind of pop up in battleground states, specifically, Michigan, Wisconsin. We're starting to see a little bit of controversy with how the media is calling the elections as well. Like, they don't want to call Trump's lead in certain states, but they're more than happy to call Biden's lead in other states. Personally, my biggest thing is that we have a fair and safe election. I think that should be number one on everybody's list as opposed to what candidate wins. Obviously, we all have somebody that we voted for, but that said, it is the number one priority, I think, for everybody to make sure that there is no cheating that's going on. And so today, what we're going to talk about is a few of the things that are going on, Detroit, Michigan, as well as some of the underreported issues that we've seen around the nation. Okay, first things first, though, I want to debunk SHARPIEGATE. There was like this whole thing in, I think it was Arizona, where people were saying basically that they had been given Sharpies at the polls and that like these Sharpies were causing the ballots to be misread or, misinterpreted by the counting stations. That turned out not to be true. It turned out that the ballots had been created for Sharpies and pens alike, so that wasn't a really big deal. I'm calling it SHARPIEGATE. I think that, that kind of symbolizes the fact that a lot of people are really concerned about the status of this election. I think that a lot of people are really concerned that there's cheating on both sides. This isn't just a Republican or a Democrat issue. Everybody's really kind of worried that there is some malicious intent behind this election. And I can't blame people when we're starting to see things like what happened in Detroit. We have seen Project Veritas come out with a number of expose videos, both in Colorado, which is where I am, as well as in Texas. Like, we've seen these small scale attempts at cheating this election. So I want to go ahead and start with Detroit because I think Detroit is really unique in the sense that it's been kind of caught red-handed. So the first place that I'm going to go, well, this is my Twitter account. You guys can find all of this there if you're interested in listening to it. But there was a video that was posted by the election wizard. I don't think it came from him specifically. I won't play the video as a whole. You can find it on my Twitter if you wanted to watch it. But it is in Detroit outside of the polling station. And basically there's a woman who was inside the polling station, and she said that she saw a box of about 500 ballots in Detroit where not a single name inside of that ballot box, which was like actually completed ballots, not a single name was a registered voter. It sounds like she was a poll watcher or maybe a ballot counter, and that basically she was trying to check the situation and it wasn't accurate. She's saying in the video, quote, "That's 500 names of people who are not on a registered voter list." Now that's only 500 votes, right? Like, big deal, 500 votes. But this is just one person talking about one box in one city. Is this going on in other places? Detroit is a huge, huge city where, it's in a battleground state. And it brings to light that there is a potential for a lot of fraud with these mail-in ballots, these absentee ballots. Everybody's been saying it for a long time. They've been calling out the fact that we have a concern of mail-in and absentee ballots being like leveraged to suit one party or the other. I think a lot of people realize that it's more of the Democrat Party that was pushing for these mail-in ballots, and that it's most likely that they would use these ballots to cheat. But that said, it could go either way, and I think that's why everybody has been hoping for a safe, secure election. Unfortunately, with all these ballots being mailed in, nobody knows really where they're coming from, if they're coming from registered voters or not. Especially now we see this woman in Detroit saying 500 ballots discovered, not a registered voter on the list. And I'm not really supposed to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to play the video. So here we go. Let's see what this woman has to say. Hopefully my feed doesn't lag. Let's see if we can hear her.
So I just grabbed one box. It's 500.
I restart it.
500 ballots, and so I have the Baxter, Mr. Baxter, whatever, had to go to the head guy because I want to see every one of those ballots, copy them down, copy on the precinct because they don't show up on any list. So I just grabbed one box. It's 500 names of people that are not on a register.
So there's my feed going. But what she's saying is that she picked up a box, and in that box was 500 ballots. And when she checked the names on those ballots, nobody was a registered voter. That's just one box, you guys. That's pretty concerning when you think about it. And I don't want to say the whole state or every city that voted overwhelmingly blue did something like this, but we are seeing it happen. Here in this video, these two women are actual poll watchers. They're inside the Detroit facility where they're counting absentee and mail-in ballots. And they tell the news station that's recording there, they actually tell her, we are understaffed as poll watchers. There's supposed to be a system of checks and balances, basically, where the poll watchers are ensuring that people counting the votes are doing the right thing. And they're telling the news station, we are understaffed. There's one person for 2 to 3 tables, and there's supposed to be one person per table. So listen to this. Let's see if this works.
The floor. So we'll check that when we have it.
All right. Teresa Valdez, Mandy Wright with the Detroit.
Oh yeah, we know that. We've been reporting on it.
And that we're understaffed in here.
How are you understaffed?
How are you understaffed, they said. Let's see.
We don't have enough people monitoring the tables. We're covering 3 tables.
How many people? Here's what we've been told, and then tell me if we're being misinformed, in your opinion.
Yeah. So we have people that we should have one person per table.
Correct.
And we have people that are covering 2 and 3 tables.
Okay.
Republicans covering 2 and 3 tables. Without letting these people in, we don't have enough coverage.
Okay, now when you, from what we understand, both the Republicans, the Democrats, and nonpartisan are each allowed to have 134 challengers in here.
Okay.
And the last count they had, it was 265 Democratic challengers, 240 some Republicans, and 65 nonpartisan. Now I understand you have an issue with the nonpartisan because they're at the ACLU, the League of Women Voters, who you tend to think to be more.
We don't even know who they are.
You don't know who they are. However, they've shut the door because they're at overcapacity. The same number of challengers are in here. What are you seeing at the tables that leads us?
We're seeing nobody. We're seeing that we're
covering
under
three
capacity.
tables at a time.
That we have to cover 2 and 3 tables at a time.
Okay.
So that would mean that we're under capacity.
Okay.
And that more people need to be let in. And they're not being let in.
How many tables are out here? Do you know?
No, I don't.
Okay. Alrighty. Okay. So if
Right there, I'm going to stop it. So what they're saying is that there's about 140 to 150 tables where people are counting ballots. Then they say we're understaffed. They want people to be let in so that people can watch the poll counter, watch the ballot counters, right? They're not letting people in. This is the scene outside of the facility. Let's see if I can find the video here. Yep, right here. So this is the scene outside of that facility. There's people outside. You can kind of see through the windows. People outside, and they're actually boarding up the windows so that people cannot see what's happening inside. That is very abnormal. That's very abnormal. In fact, there was a woman who sent a video from the inside to her husband saying they're cheering every time they kick out a poll watcher. Here is that tweet actually. Eric Nisbet posted on Twitter. He said, my wife sent this video of Detroit election workers cheering every time a Michigan GOP attorney is removed from the TCF Center. The TCF Center is where all these votes are being counted. She says they do this every time they eject a GOP poll watcher, and that Dem watchers outnumber the GOP 3-1. That is, I hate to say it, but that really undermines the security of this election. It really makes people concerned that there is some sort of wrongdoing going on. Hey, Jim, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm trying to do my best to cover this because, as you guys know, the mainstream media is not covering this. Even Fox News earlier today called Arizona early before all the votes had been counted, before there was any sort of true consensus on who won the state. And that just kind of goes to show that even like the right-wing news stations like Fox News, they don't necessarily have the truth in mind. They're kind of more speaking on an agenda. I heard somebody say that they're kind of like a controlled opposition news station, whereas, you have like MSNBC and CNN reporting basic leftist news. And then they have Fox News, who's reporting supposedly right-wing news. But matter of fact is, Fox News oftentimes, while it is somewhat opposing to what's coming out on CNN and other networks like that, basically they don't actually go to the real truth and the real heart of what's going on. Unfortunately, you can really only get that from independent news coverage. So that's kind of what's going on in Detroit. I wanted to show you guys one more video. This was put up by Steven Crowder earlier today, and this is pretty concerning.
Okay, so let's go to the video. This is
a video actually sent to him by a lawyer from Texas who was in Detroit, Michigan, to ensure election security. She was there to watch over what was going on in the election, and she actually discovered something that, in my opinion, is pretty concerning. She was out at about 4 to 5 a.m. With her cell phone, just kind of keeping an eye on the counting station. And what she found was this. I'm going to go ahead and play this video here for you guys.
So the person who's going to be logging in, her name is Kelly S.
To give you guys an idea of what's happening.
She's a licensed attorney here in Texas.
Let me mute that for a second. So to give you guys an idea of what's happening in this video. This is outside of the polling station, the vote counting station in Detroit. And what we see here is a gentleman in an unmarked van taking a box outside of the back of the van, putting it into a kid's red wagon, and wheeling it inside of the facility. What the heck, right? So it's kind of speeding around all over the place. Let's see if I can get this to play right. But basically, he takes the box out of the van, he puts it in a wagon, and then he wheels that wagon into the ballot counting facility. There he is. There he goes into the facility with the wagon and the box. And nobody stops him. Nobody checks his ID. Nobody checks the box to see what's inside of it to confirm that there's not fraudulently filled out ballots in there. And he just walks right in. What is in the box? It could be absolutely nothing. It could be totally benign, or it could be fraudulent ballots. And it's hard to say because nobody checked him when he walked in. How often did this happen? It's hard to say. Now, after this video was played on Louder with Crowder, they actually showed a separate video taken by the same person, a lawyer from Texas, where she was basically like standing in what looks like the lobby of the facility. And you see people walking in with coolers, people walking in with pillowcases, people walking in with luggage into this vote counting facility. And it's like, is nobody going to check these boxes? Is nobody going to check what's in the pillowcase or the cooler just to make sure that it's actually like not, I don't know, not fraudulent ballots? And nobody did. It was totally unsecured. And this is a vote counting station. It's just kind of wild. Now, to move on from Detroit, obviously there's been some issues with Detroit. Let's talk about SHARPIEGATE. SHARPIEGATE was like a momentary conspiracy in which in Arizona, in Maricopa County, I think that's how you say it, basically a lot of people were writing to local officials saying, hey, we were given a Sharpie at the polls. Is this going to affect my vote? And Mark Brnovich, who is the AG in Arizona, he wrote a letter to Maricopa County, and they clarified saying, no, our ballots are supposed to be used with either Sharpies or pens. The way we printed them this year allows either or. So, you know, I kind of touched on this earlier. I think that there's just a lot of people who do not have a lot of faith in the integrity of this election. There's a lot of people who, at the slightest hint of potential wrongdoing, they're concerned that something has gone wrong already. And, you know, I can't blame them because we see things like Detroit, and we see a lack of security in these vote counting facilities. And the fact that in Detroit people are boarding up the windows so people can't see into the facility, I think that's enough for anybody to kind of wonder what the heck is going on. Like, why do you need to do that? Now, I don't know what you guys think about this, but a lot of people have said that Election Day is November 3rd and that everything should be finished by November 3rd, especially considering how much technology we have today. You guys can let me know what you think about that in the chat, whether or not you think that November 3rd should be pretty much it for Election Day. A lot of people also think that, you know, every vote should be counted. I'm of the opinion that every vote should be counted, but it shouldn't be every vote. It should be every legal vote. Every legally cast vote should be counted. And unfortunately, there's no way of actually knowing whether every legally cast vote is going to be counted because we don't know if these votes are legal. We saw overnight in, I believe it was it Michigan? It was Michigan. So same state as Detroit, you know, same area as Detroit, where basically thousands of ballots just showed up overnight. You know, I think Trump had the lead last night when we were going to bed, and all of a sudden this morning everybody wakes up and suddenly Trump has no lead anymore. Instead, it is a Biden it's looking like a Biden victory. In PA, yep, it was Michigan. It was 138,000 ballots overnight cast that were counted, and they all just so happened to be for Biden. 100% of those were for Biden. What is that about? It's hard to say. Like, there's a number of people asking the question of who is checking these ballots that are coming in overnight. Let's see here. You know, something else that hasn't been talked about on the mainstream news that I have noticed is that Twitter is already censoring Donald Trump's tweets. This is extremely interesting because he actually posted something saying that there was a number of ballots that turned up overnight in which 100% of those ballots were for Joe Biden. What is the likelihood that all of these ballots that are coming in overnight after everybody's asleep are 100% for Biden? I don't know that that's statistically possible. Hard to say, but it is easy to look and see that Twitter is actually, you know, censoring the president of the United States. Whether or not he wins the election, he is the current president of the United States. And here, if you look at what was tweeted out earlier today, he posted basically they're finding Biden votes all over the place in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, all of which are swing states. And these tweets are being completely not like them. You can't comment on these tweets. You can retweet them, and that's the only way you can tell what he was actually posting. So in my opinion, if something is just kind of an honest mistake, if ballots that are counted are just honestly miscounted, the numbers are off. Is there a need to censor bringing up a question as to whether or not those ballots are legal? I don't think so. In my opinion, the only time people look to censor something is if they don't want that information to get out. Now, like SHARPIEGATE, okay, SHARPIEGATE, that turned out not to be true. And they didn't censor it. And what happened? Everybody kind of just figured it out. Like we followed what happened with the AG and the response from the county, and then the truth comes out, right? That's how America works, is we meet bad speech with good speech. Not that there is bad and good speech, but we meet falsehoods with truth, and that kind of works itself out. For some reason, Twitter doesn't like that Donald Trump is tweeting about ballots showing up in odd places where 100% of the ballots are actually for the competitor. Now, something else I would like to point out is that Twitter is saying that nobody can call the election, right? Twitter, the mainstream media, a lot of the Secretary of States have said it's going to take quite some time for all of these results to come in, and that we have to wait for the presidential race to be decided before we can call a winner. For some reason, Biden has pretty much already declared victory on his website. He actually has his transition website up already. The transition of power site is already up and live. And earlier today, I went to his homepage to look at this, and it said, when all of the votes are counted, Joe Biden will be the next president of the United States. And I just have this question. I'm just curious. If we are truly voting and nobody really already knows what is going on, how does Joe Biden know that he is going to win if all the votes are counted? This is actually the same thing that the Attorney General, I believe it was the Attorney General of Pennsylvania, said. He posted on Twitter, the Attorney General of Pennsylvania said, like, if all the votes are counted correctly, then Biden will win. And it's like, okay, I don't see how you know that. How do you know that if all of the votes are counted, that a certain candidate will win? On either side, if we're all voting, then it should be basically whatever the votes say, right? And John here brings up a good point. John in the chat, he said, outside looking in from Canada, the United States really needs to look into some kind of voter reform. And no, gerrymandering is not voter reform. And I totally agree with you, John. I think that there are some really serious issues here in the United States that have compromised our election process. There are, like, and it's hard to put our finger on exactly where those issues are stemming from. I don't know that the Electoral College itself is the issue, or if it's the way that we're casting votes, but for sure, there has been an obvious erosion of trust and integrity in our election system. And the fact that so many people are pointing out inconsistencies in the way the election went this time around is proof of that. Now, here in Colorado, there's been a movement to switch to national popular vote. A lot of Coloradoans aren't really a fan of the national popular vote because it would kind of give these larger, more populous states like California and New York more say, because typically regionally people vote similarly. And here in Colorado, we have turned into pretty much a blue state, but there's still a lot of people here who enjoy the Electoral College. So I'm not really sure what the solution would be to voter reform. If you guys have ideas, drop them in the comments. I'm super interested in hearing what you guys think about that. I think that the election went contested. We all thought that there was going to be some chaos from it, but I think we were all expecting riots, widespread rioting, and that wasn't really the case. It wasn't really the case that we had widespread rioting. It was more a lot of confusing and really obscure voter concerns. It wasn't like, people scaling the fence at the White House like we all thought was going to happen, pretty much. A lot of us covering riots and covering Antifa really thought that there was going to be widespread destruction on election night. And it's unclear whether it didn't happen because of an unclear winner yet, or if it's because, they were expecting a Joe Biden win. Not really sure why. We do have rioting in Denver tonight, and we have rioting, I believe, in New York already. But nothing like what we were expecting. I know the Secret Service put up a non-scalable fence around the White House, and so we were kind of expecting more in D.C., and it's good that it didn't happen, but at the same time, it's not really clear why there's a lag. Something that I thought was super interesting is the Michigan Secretary of State. So again, same state that Detroit is in, where all of this kind of chaos has been going on. The Michigan Secretary of State was actually on the Southern Poverty Law Center's board of directors, which is really interesting because the Southern Poverty Law Center has been one of the go-to legal resources for Black Lives Matter and Antifa rioters throughout the year. In fact, the National Lawyers Guild and the Southern Poverty Law Center, they would actually put their phone numbers on their arms. They'd write them in marker. And the purpose was that if they got arrested, they knew they can call these two organizations for help, and they would get the help. So the Michigan Secretary of State was actually on the board of directors for Southern Poverty Law Center. And I believe it was yesterday, she was removed from the site, or maybe it was this morning, I'm sorry. It was this morning. She was removed from the site as a board of director, claiming that resignation had occurred last year. However, she was on the site until yesterday. This is really interesting because SPLC is a super leftist organization, and Secretary of States are supposed to be responsible for a safe and secure election. That's like their number one goal, is to ensure that there's no cheating and to ensure that there is integrity in the way that the states process their votes. My question is, can somebody who is a board member for a leftist legal organization be nonpartisan? Can they hold a nonpartisan role like the Secretary of State? Here in Colorado, our Secretary of State has gotten a lot of heat from media and everyday citizens for kind of going, how do I put this? She has put herself in the public eye more than pretty much any Secretary of State that we've seen, and in fact, actually temporarily ran for Senate before she withdrew from the race because she got so much heat, because you can't really be a Secretary of State and run on a partisan ticket for Senate. So it raised a lot of questions here in Colorado whether or not our Secretary of State was nonpartisan and was able to hold a nonpartisan position. And then we see here in Michigan that they kind of have the same issue, that a Secretary of State has taken office who has a history of obviously partisan views and partaking in obviously partisan legal processes. So, it's just kind of concerning. I'm wondering on a personal level whether or not these Secretary of States have gotten into office with partisan views, and those partisan views are now influencing the way that they handle election integrity in their state. Something else, just kind of to touch on Twitter censorship again. So we talked about how Twitter was censoring the president of the U.S. I think that something else that should be noted is that the smaller accounts for reporting on election discrepancies. So earlier today, there was an account that I was looking at, and I don't know who this person is, but the account was Derek Duck. And Ian Miles Cheong, who's a pretty well-respected journalist, he writes for, I believe it's the Gateway Pundit, or no, he writes for the Post Millennial. So Ian Miles Cheong, he had been kind of sharing this Derek Duck's thread of election discrepancies, and it was all retweeted information. It was stuff that was coming out from local news stations, and this account was basically making a thread of all the information coming from different places throughout the US. What happened was that account actually got completely suspended from Twitter for creating a thread. And here's some of the tweets that they had put out. Okay, so here's the retweet from Ian Miles Cheong, who gets a lot of traction on Twitter. So I'm wondering if this is what actually got the account flagged. Derek Duck said, the Michigan situation was a typo. A massive jump in Biden votes out of nowhere is because Shiawassee County reported 153,710 votes when it should have been 15,371 votes. So 100,000 vote discrepancy there. And he actually shared the original sources showing that there was an issue with the way that the information was reported, that there was a typo. Here's the full tweet. see here, and they actually give you the local news station that the information came from. And then I went back to check later in the day to see what new information he had put to the thread, and the whole account was suspended, entirely suspended, everything. All of the tweets were gone, his account was gone. Now, is it possible that this was some sort of foreign interference, that they were only pulling information from there had been issues? It's possible. It's totally possible that this was, some sort of foreign op. But at the same time, it is curious that all of the information that he had posted was legitimate. It was coming from local news sources and then being shared on this account. And the account got picked up and retweeted by major people like Ian. And lo and behold, the account gets suspended. It's not like they were spreading false information, at least nothing that I had seen that was false. So I find it interesting, in my opinion. Now, that said, even if it was a foreign op, which is possible, like, I don't want to be partisan, and I don't want to have too much of an opinion on these things. I like to just kind of present the facts and give you guys the opportunity to decide what you think. That said, Prop 16 in California was heavily influenced. This is something that I just did an article on. Prop 16 in California was intended to change the California Constitution and was intended to re-allow affirmative action, which, if you guys aren't familiar with affirmative action, basically what it does is it allows people to essentially be discriminated on in favor of their race or ethnicity. So like me, I'm half Hispanic. I'm half Hispanic, but I look white, right? Like I have light blonde hair, I have light skin, but actually my mom is an immigrant from Honduras and my dad is Caucasian from America. But that said, I am half Hispanic. And when I was going to college, I was told by many people to fill out Hispanic on my my application so that I could get preferential treatment. So that's essentially affirmative action, is giving people who are minorities and underprivileged ethnicities the opportunity to benefit in other situations where, college, job opportunities, things like that. But I didn't do that. I kind of just wanted to get in on my own merit. I just left that area blank. And I don't know, a lot of people have different opinions on affirmative action, but one of the things that I found out right before election happened, I actually published this on November 3rd, was that Prop 16 in California was actually being heavily pushed by a Chinese national who was living in California, who regularly would take Americans over to China to basically learn about the Chinese Communist Party and celebrate the birth of the CCP, which, for those of you who don't know, the CCP started basically with dictator Mao Zedong. He was responsible for like 65,000 deaths during his dictatorship, and which is, for the record, more deaths than occurred during the Holocaust, which is kind of insane to think about. But basically, Prop 16 in California was being heavily pushed by an individual by the name of Lee Soo-hin, and this is him right here in this picture, with a Chinese official, a high-ranking Chinese official. And here is him in front of a large audience, and there is a picture of, I believe that's Che Guevara right there. And here he is standing in front of a picture of Mao Zedong, the guy who basically killed 65 million people during his regime. And so Action LA is the organization that Lee Soo-hin runs. And Action LA was pushing Prop 16 in California for this election. See here, this is a snapshot of their website. And it is pushing yes on Prop 16. But, this guy who is running this organization, Action LA, he's still on Twitter. He is on Twitter. He only retweets state-sanctioned media from China and Russia. And it's just really interesting to think that only some people and some accounts are being removed from Twitter under the assumption that they're some sort of state, foreign state operation, while other accounts, which are clearly state-run operations, are being allowed on Twitter if they push a leftist narrative. So I find that really a combination of interesting and concerning. I heard that Project Veritas was going to be releasing some information about Michigan voter fraud in regards to USPS. And, I haven't actually looked in on that, so I don't know if you guys want to, but you can come along with me to look at it. Let's see if they published it. Let's see here. This is actually new territory for me, so I guess you guys can come on a research investigation with me. It looks like they did tweet it. Let's see. Let's see if they put it out. And it was supposed to be in Michigan, which is, the heart of this Detroit issue. Let's see. Yeah, so it says here, looks like they did put it out. It says Michigan whistleblower details directive from superiors. Backdate late mail-in ballots as received November 3rd, 2020, so they are accepted. That's kind of huge because, yeah. So let's see what this video has to say.
The Traverse City Post Office, more specifically the Ballot branch.
Your boss told you and your colleagues something that shocked you this morning. What was it?
We were issued a directive this morning to collect any ballots we find in mailboxes, collection boxes, just outgoing mail in general, separate them at the end of the day so that they could hand stamp them with the previous day's date. Today is November 4th, for clarification.
Who is your boss, and what is his title?
Jonathan would be a direct supervisor, yes. As of right now, he is the opening supervisor for the Barlow branch post office. Wow. So and this is anecdotal, carrier down at another office said they watched the postmaster doing it. If it were just a typical day, it would be clerks doing it up at the distribution center.
So 8 p.m. Election Day, November 3rd, the Court of Appeals ruled ballots have to be received by that time. And what were you told?
To separate them today so they could mark them with yesterday's date and send them through the express system to wherever they needed to go.
This appears to be an attempt to circumvent Michigan law and allow late votes. And you said there was a hamper where letter carriers were supposed to leave their ballots. Where are the ballots now?
They were putting them into express bags to go to the distribution center. In regards to a hamper, there was a standard hamper that all letter mail is supposed to go to, and they had a tub next to it that we were supposed to put any ballots collected today into.
Yes. What made you come forward?
That's sketchy. I don't like sketchy. It screams corruption. Also, knowing the post office's leanings politically, it didn't seem quite right.
So I'm going to pause that right there. Let's talk about that. Okay. So according to this Project Veritas video, which I don't know about you guys, but I personally do trust most of what Project Veritas puts out there. They usually provide some decent video evidence. They provide audio evidence, and they have won, I think, every single lawsuit that they have ever taken to court. They're pretty reputable, in my opinion. I know that they're pretty controversial because a lot of people say that there is not enough, that there's not enough evidence or that there's not enough follow-up on their stuff. That said, they do win their lawsuits in court, and they do provide some pretty damning video evidence. So according to this is my first time hearing it, and this is my first time reviewing this video. You guys are watching along with me. But it sounds like the Michigan USPS is actually backdating ballots that are received late so that Michigan can count them. And those of you guys, if you're watching from outside the U.S., I know Jonathan said he's in Canada. The USPS is like notorious for leaning left. They are unionized. They are very much in favor of Joe Biden. I think that they actually, I could be wrong here, but I think they actually endorsed Biden for president. And the issue with the mail-in ballots has always been, from the right, basically, what they have said is that there is no way to confirm whether or not these ballots are from the voter that is supposed to be sending them. Here in Colorado, we have like a signature confirmation process where mail-in ballots are confirmed by signature matching. But that could be flawed. And according to this, it says that basically people are sending the ballots in late, and these ballots should not be counted, but they are being counted by direction of the USPS. And once again, I hate to say it, but people are really starting to question our election. I was actually contacted by somebody who is in India, in the J&K region, which is Jammu and Kashmir. And one of the issues that they have had there for like since basically the beginning of India, when Gandhi got separation from the United Kingdom, was that the Islamic State, which was basically run by Pakistan, when Pakistan and India separated into two countries after independence was achieved, their elections and their democracy has always been threatened by basically people who want the Jammu and Kashmir region of India to become a part of Pakistan. And so ever since they became India, they have had their elections under siege, basically. Like, there's been people trying to infiltrate political offices. There's been terror attacks. And somebody reached out to me from the J&K region, who I respect. They have like a PhD. They're a well-known individual in India. Reached out to me and said, hey, is this stuff true, what I'm seeing about the elections there? And I told them, I was like, unfortunately, yes, it is. And they basically told me what you're looking at is some sort of legalized coup. And I kind of agree with that. As much as I don't like to bring opinion into it, I think that sometimes it is important to offer like some context, I guess. And it is kind of a legal coup. And it's hard to say how big this attempt at cheating is, but it is enough for many lawyers, including Cernovich. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Cernovich, but he's a big lawyer in California. He's headed out to Arizona. I think he's there right now, actually. He drove out to Arizona last minute to pretty much demand election integrity, because Arizona is one of these states that are kind of on the fence. And Fox News called Arizona early. Fox News said Biden won Arizona. And that's actually not the case. Trump's actually ahead in Arizona right now, and the ballots have not been finished counting. For some reason, the news won't call PA, even though Trump does have a major lead in Pennsylvania right now. They won't call it, and so those votes are not on the Electoral College map. So, as much as I hate to say it, a lot of countries look to America as a voting democracy. We are a constitutional republic, but they do look to us for safe and secure elections. We're one of the hallmarks of safe and secure elections. And slowly but surely, at least over my lifetime, that has kind of been brought into question. It's kind of been a slippery slope towards corruption. And unfortunately, with this election, I think that we are seeing plenty of evidence of that. And I think that's partly due to the internet. I think that a lot of things that used to go unnoticed are no longer going unnoticed. I think that a lot of people are aware of more things that are going on today, as opposed to they would have been 30 years ago. That said, it doesn't make it any better. It makes things worse, in my opinion. I think that everybody has the right to a safe and secure election, and everybody has the right to have their vote count. But when you see things like this, that's an issue. I also did see some pictures of electoral vote counters in Detroit wearing Biden masks, which is a little strange to me. That's like, if you're counting votes, maybe you shouldn't be wearing the like propaganda memorabilia of one of those two parties. And Brett Weinstein says here, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with who the Weinstein brothers are, but they're kind of like intelligentsia people. They're college educated, degreed people, and they kind of flipped this year. I'm pretty sure they're quite liberal, and I think they still are, but they had a lot to say against the Democrat Party this year because of the rampant censorship, two, because of the kind of the underground thought and belief by many that there is a very Marxist, Maoist revolution going on here in America that is being allowed and even encouraged by Democrat officials. It's like allowing their dirty work to be done for them by these younger college kids, right? And I think that's a really good point to be made out by. And Brett Weinstein says here on Twitter, basically, he says, it's subtle, but there's actually a good case to be made for the Electoral College. When it comes to the way states collect, count, and report results, on the other hand, we're fools to put up with this dangerous nonsense. And that's true. I think that's what Jonathan was saying earlier, is that basically, we do have a decent voting system, but there's some serious issues that are that are at play here. There's some really serious issues in the way votes are being counted. There's some serious issues in the way that I guess that things are reported after everything is counted. You know, it looks like Tom Fitton is calling on the Justice Department about that Project Veritas video, asking, hey, do we still even have a Justice Department? And that's like a really legit question. You know, as frustrating as it is, the Justice Department and the FBI have been very MIA for a while. They have not been around to actually uphold the law. Instead, they have been kind of just going with the flow of left-leaning ideas. And I think that this really stands out in the case of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, as well as the Hunter Biden laptop. The FBI has had that laptop for a year, and they still went through with the whole impeachment ordeal, right? They still went through and allowed the impeachment to go pretty much to run itself into the ground, and never came forward and said, hey, we actually have evidence that Obama administration had partaken in some really sketchy stuff. The FBI just didn't come forward. When it comes to Hillary Clinton's emails, the FBI was nowhere to be found. The DOJ was nowhere to be found. When it comes to Jeffrey Epstein, we had that going on for a very long time. I think it was like 10 years. And Epstein was allowed to walk around for a very long time until basically Trump got into office, and then Maxwell was caught, right? Epstein was caught. Epstein killed himself in jail. Nobody knows still what really happened with all of that. And it makes me wonder whether or not America has really lost the reins. You know what I mean? Not to say that I don't think that we could get everything back to where it was and how it was functioning before, but I think that so many people for so long have just tuned out of what's going on in politics. So many people have become disenfranchised by the political process, especially young people. There's a lot of young people who really just don't even know what's going on. They have opinions, but they don't know what's going on a day-to-day basis. And that has really led to a situation where certain groups and certain people have a lot of control and say into who gets charged with certain things, into what information comes out. And unfortunately, what we see today is a result of years and years of neglect, years and years of neglecting our political system and understanding what's going on. So, I don't know. I mean, hopefully we'll get some answers tonight. Let's see before we log off here what is going on with AZ. Now, you can't really always trust what's going on Twitter, because Twitter does kind of create a feed that benefits what they think. I don't know if China holds any stock in Twitter, but I suspect that they do. I'd be interested to find out. Yeah, you pretty much never trust this little area on Twitter, this upfront area. Let's see if there's any news from Arizona. Alaska, obviously, is probably going to be a Trump state. It's usually pretty red. Let's see. I wonder if Cernovich is in Arizona yet. Let's find out, guys. Let's go there and see what Cernovich is up to. Anyway, how's your guys' night going? Everything good over there? You guys have anything cool going on tonight? I have a brisket in the oven. I know you're supposed to usually smoke those, but I don't have a smoker, so. Yeah, looks like Cernovich is there. He is in Arizona. He wants everybody to count the votes. He actually has a live stream up if you guys wanted to watch it. Yeah, pretty cool. In Denver tonight, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but we actually have rioting in Denver tonight. Yes, we do have a local Antifa chapter. I've actually covered them. If you were to go to my Twitter account and look at my header photo, those are all pictures of protests I've been to. They actually have like pointed weapons at people. So here's my Twitter page. This is my header. And yeah, this was in southern Colorado, believe it or not. We had people with bulletproof vests, assault rifles. Here in this picture, it's hard to make out. I had to kind of hide it a little bit because I thought Twitter might remove me for violent content if if I showed too much of this image, but basically there were people with assault rifles who were pointing their weapons towards the protesters. I'm not sure if they were like trying to use them as a scope or something, but it was pretty unsettling to have people pointing assault rifles at you while you're, standing in a protest. Kind of crazy. Yeah, so I mean, I don't know what else to say, guys. There's still more information coming out. I can tell you that there's a lot of lawyers who are on the ground right now. Rudy Giuliani, I think, is in Pennsylvania. Trump has filed 3 lawsuits in 3 different states so far, requesting the votes to stop being counted. I don't know if we should stop counting the votes. I'd be interested in what you guys think. I think all legal votes should be counted. I also do agree that Election Day is on November 3rd. Hard to say. If Biden wins, I'll probably just laugh and have to continue doing what I've been doing. And if Trump wins, I think it would be a big morale booster for Republicans. That said, I think that Democrats are going to be very upset. And I personally, I've seen Tim Pool post that he thinks basically that the media will call the election in favor of Biden. Trump will take it to court. And from there out, Trump will probably win the election, and then all the Democrats will say that, Trump stole the election. On the other end of that, I think that the Republicans, if the media calls it in Biden's favor, that the Republicans will say that Biden stole the election. So that's what I think. I think somebody is going to be calling a stolen election either way. I think there's plenty of evidence of voter fraud regardless of which direction everything goes in. But, what are we going to do? We have got to make some changes in the way that our elections are handled. I don't think that mail-in voting is effective. I don't think that it is secure. I think that there's absolutely no way to ensure that votes do not get commandeered. Unfortunately, Colorado does 100% universal mail-out ballots. So 100% of the voters in Colorado get a ballot in the mail. And then you can send it back if you choose to, or you can mail it in. And I don't think that's a good idea. I don't know what you guys think, but I don't think it's a good idea. I think that it leaves a lot of room for stolen ballots. I think it leaves a lot of room for mailed-in ballots to be commandeered by either party. I think that's true for Republicans or Democrats. I don't think that it even matters what party is mailing back the ballots. I think that it gives opportunity for stolen ballots, adjusted ballots. I think that people can take ballots out of mailboxes or whatever. They get lost. I don't know. I guess we'll find out what the heck happens here on out. I'll definitely keep you guys updated. I might be doing another live stream tonight, depending on if there's more information that comes out about the election. I do think that either way, we're going to be looking at a contested election, no matter what. And hopefully it doesn't result in widespread rioting. So far, it's just a few different cities that are rioting, and nobody's been burned down like the scale that we saw in Kenosha. But that doesn't mean it couldn't get there. Anyway, we will see. I'll keep you guys updated, and thank you all for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat. You guys can also check out my website at thenomanzone.com. That's where all of my written work goes. This is kind of just like a YouTube channel that I come on and do updates for, but all of my real investigative journalism is on my website. I do some pretty serious investigative journalism looking into my specialty, which is Marxism and American politics. And so if you guys wanted to read my work, you could go there. I usually do videos, recorded videos, not live videos, to update you guys on my pieces. Maybe I'll do that tonight. We'll see. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Again, if you have any questions, leave them in the chat. If you wanted to read my work, you can go to thenomanzone.com, and you can find me on Twitter at COAngelaRamirez. Thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate every single one.